morning again, everyone.
歡迎我哋第2日嘅年會嘅 program。
Welcome to the second day of Combined Church Camp.
如果大家小朋友嘅話，應該已經去晒嗰邊㗎啦。
For our kids on the side, you may now head off to your program. They're about to head out. But if you weren't here last night, we'll reintroduce our program leaders. We've got Mariana, Nick, Ed, Ellen just at the door, Sophie, Christian.
crew member 有唔同 crew member 去幫助我哋小朋友嘅去帶佢哋 program 啦，咁可以有時間認識佢哋。然後呢，有一個再來多說一遍。就是我们如果你需要翻译的话，就是我们所有的翻译都会在国语的频道进行。然后呢，如果你需要帮助的话，在营会的那个第6页应该是有那个 instruction 怎么去那个 app 怎么用那些东西。真的不懂的话呢 ，admin 在后面可以找他帮忙。
If you need help with the interpretation system, all of the interpretation for this first session is going to go through the Mandarin channel. Edmund is at the back. Give us a wave, Edmund.
Edmund's helping.
If you need help.
OK， 好，咁我哋喺開始前亦都介紹我哋嘅 committee 啦。如果你未認識嘅話，咁我係 Ronald 啦，呢係 Tiff。Hi,
I'm Tiff. This is Ronald. We're going to introduce the camp committee to you.
係啦，跟住咧亦都有唔同其他嘅 committee 嘅。Can the committee stand up or wave or like show up? Way up. By the back, working so hard. 係如果你需要話有任何關於會上，你可以問我哋啦，或者問我哋嘅 committee 嘅。
If you have any issues or anything, please come see one of the committee members. We'll just ask around till you find them.
好啦，咁我哋開始前咧，我哋做個祈禱，開始今日嘅第一個 session， 我用英文嘅。Dear God, God of all generations, we praise you for your everlasting love and faithfulness. We thank you for this opportunity to gather as your people, to have this time to listen to your word. Lord, I want to lift up all our hearts onto your hand. I pray that, Lord, you will help us to settle our hearts and have undivided focus on you right now. May your Spirit help us to understand the message you have for us today. And we ask that you will bless our speakers, Patrick and Jenny Fung, so that they will deliver your message clearly and faithfully. Lastly, we pray that you will also give us energy throughout the camp, so that we can learn from your word and enjoy fellowship with one another. In Jesus' name, amen. Now we'll do the Bible reading. 我用廣東話去做去讀經嘅，咁咧睇晒上面啦，所以我而家要睇個英文普通話嚟嘅。好，有兩段經文，第一個係《出埃及記》3章1至7節。好，請聽我讀出。摩西放牧他岳父米甸祭司葉特羅的羊群，他領羊群往曠野的那一邊去，到上帝的山，就是何烈山。耶和華的使者在荊棘火焰中向他顯現。摩西觀看，看啊，荊棘在火中焚燒，卻沒有燒毀。摩西說：我要轉過去看這大異象，這荊棘為何沒有燒毀呢？耶和華叫摩西轉過去看，上帝就從荊棘裏呼叫他，說：摩西，摩西。他說：我在這裏。上帝說：不要靠近這裏，把你腳上的鞋脱下來，因為你所站的地方是聖地。他又說：我是你父親的上帝，是亞伯拉罕的上帝，以撒的上帝，雅各的上帝。摩西蒙上念，因為怕看上帝。耶和華說：我確實看見了我百姓在埃及所受的困苦，我也聽見了他們因受監工苦待所發的哀聲，我確實知道他們的痛苦。跟住第二段經文喺約書亞記5章12、15節。第12節，他們吃了當地出產的第2日，嗎哪就停止了。以色列人不再有嗎哪了，那一年他們就吃迦南地的出產。約書亞靠近耶利哥的時候，舉目觀看， 看啊，有一個人站在他對面，手裏拿着拔出來的刀。約書亞到他那裏，對他說：你是屬我們的，還是屬我們敵人的呢？他說：不，我現在來是要作耶和華軍隊的元帥。約書亞就臉伏於地下拜，說：主有什麼話，請吩咐僕人吧。耶和華軍隊的元帥對約書亞說：把你腳上的鞋脱下來，因為你所站的地方是聖的。約書亞就照着做了。Okay. We're so glad to have Dr. Patrick Fung here to be our speaker in our camp, and also Jenny. Let me quickly give you an introduction if you don't know him yet. So Patrick was born in Hong Kong and received medical training in Australia and the UK. He and his wife, Jenny, served as medical missionaries in South Asia previously. Patrick was formerly a general doctor at OMF International from 2005 to 2023, and he's now the OMF Global Ambassador. OMF's mission is to share the good news of Jesus Christ in all his fullness with East Asia peoples. Patrick was formerly on the Lausanne Movement's International Board and is currently the advisor team chair of the Young Leader Generation and the program chair of the 4th Lausanne Congress on World Evangelization. So we have Patrick up here to share his stories.
Can you hear me all right?
大家聽到嘛？
Well, good morning, brothers and sisters in Christ.
各位主內嘅弟兄姊妹早晨。
弟兄姊妹平安。弟兄姊妹平安。Yeah, it's really good to be here at this church camp.
能夠參加呢個營會咧，我非常開心。
I was here last night, and already today the same is that I felt the energy of the camp.
我琴晚已經喺度啦，今晚一樣嘅，我真係感覺到咧呢度嘅能力充沛。
And I was so encouraged by what was shared yesterday, the Young Square. That was an excellent presentation. I want to thank the Lord for the team. So thank you.
琴晚呢個節目咧非常有意義啊！即係大家設計嘅人咧係做得非常之好。
What encouraged me last night was the sharing from generations to generations. Indeed, the God of generations that we worship God together.
琴晚我哋所分享嘅就係一代即係代代相傳，我哋見到咧神確實係世世代代嘅神。
And the other thing that encouraged me even today was that we were able to sing the songs worship God in different languages.
而今朝咧，剛才咧我哋唱歌嗰時能夠用各種唔同嘅語文唱。
Now, some of you may not be comfortable to sing in another language.
或者我哋有啲咧係唱另外嗰種嘅語文嘅時候，唔係覺得咁舒服。
It's a bit high. Okay. All right. That's better, right? Okay. Now, some of you may feel a little bit uncomfortable when you have to sing in another language.
正如我所講嘅，如果大家要用其他嘅語文唱咧，可能唔係覺得咁習慣。
But let me encourage you that discomfort actually will be a blessing to us. Let that discomfort sit with us. That will be a blessing to CBC.
但係要鼓勵大家咧，就係其實你嗰份嘅唔舒服嘅感覺咧，其實係神俾我哋嘅祝福嚟嘅。
Because we are all one in Christ. That discomfort, we need to allow that to be in CBC because that is where we belong.
因為咧呢個係表達到我哋喺主裏邊合一，所以咧雖然係有少少唔舒服嘅感覺，但係咧願意我哋咧接納喺 CBC 接納呢份嘅有少少唔舒服嘅感受。
Now, many of you know that the theme of this conference is the God of generations.
今次呢個營會嘅主題咧就係世世代代嘅神。
And I want to thank God for this, for the organizing committee for giving us this excellent theme.
我哋多謝籌委會咧能夠提出一個咁好嘅一個主題。
I want to highlight on this theme that The focus is not so much on the generation, the focus is on the first words, the God. The focus is on our God.
但我想指出嘅咧就係、其實呢個主題裏邊咧，所着重嘅唔係世世代代，而係嗰個神。
The God we worship, the God who journeys with His people through generations.
就係呢位咧，我哋敬拜嘅神，就係呢位咧，係不斷嘅領導我哋世世代代領導我哋神。
And so for the next 2 days, I will explore from the theme, this theme from the scriptures.
所以呢兩日嚟講咧，我哋會從聖經裏邊睇下咧呢個嘅主題。
Today, the message from the Old Testament, and tomorrow, the message from the New Testament.
今日呢個講座咧係取自舊約聖經，明日嘅咧係會喺新約聖經。
On how God journeys with His people.
就係神點樣咧係同佢嘅子民同行。
Looking at particularly at how God prepares and develops the leaders, as well as how God nurtures each generation for His purpose.
我哋睇下咧神點樣去裝備，點樣栽培呢啲嘅領袖，點樣咧代代嘅去栽培領袖們。
And so today we want to look at the story of Moses and Joshua.
所以今日咧，我哋就睇下咧摩西同埋約書亞嘅故事。
And Moses' life teaches us not so much that he has great faith, but faith in a great God.
其實呢個關乎摩西咧，最主要嘅唔係佢嘅信心有幾大，而係佢咧對呢位係偉大嘅神嗰個信心。
So what is Moses like?
咁究竟摩西係點樣嘅人咧？
What kind of a person is he?
究竟佢呢個人係為人係點樣嘅咧？
And so the Bible describes Moses in various ways.
聖經咧用各方面咧去形容摩西。
Thank you. I will inform you which page. Now we're on page 3. That's good. Thank you. Yeah. First of all, he is the man of God.
喺聖經裏面話佢咧係屬神嘅人，係神人。
If you read Deuteronomy chapter 33, it says here, this is the blessing that Moses, the man of God, pronounced on the Israelites.
喺申命記33章1節咧話，以下係神人摩西未死之先為以色列人所祝嘅福。
So what is a man of God? A man of God is a person who walks closely with God, who is conscious of God's guidance. That's a man of God.
一個屬於神嘅人係點樣咧？一個就係同神咧好緊密嘅關係，並且咧時常咧係會知道神所講嘅係乜嘢。
I could use the word a woman of God is the same. A woman of God is a woman who walks closely with God in the same way.
同樣嘅呢個屬於神嘅女士咧，亦都係咧係緊密嘅同神同行嘅一位。
Secondly, the Bible tells us that he is the servant of the Lord. Now next line, thank you.
跟住咧聖經就話咧佢係一個神嘅僕人。
And if you read Joshua chapter 1, it says, after the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord said to Joshua, Moses, my servant, is dead. Now you and all these people get ready to cross the river Jordan.
喺約書亞記1章1至2節咧，佢話耶和華嘅僕人摩西死了以後，耶和華曉諭摩西嘅助手亂嘅兒子約書亞說：我嘅僕人摩西死了，現在你要起來和百姓咧過約旦河，往我所要賜給以色列人嘅地去。
But there's one thing very important to notice, that the Bible only mentions Moses as a servant of the Lord when he was dead. Interestingly, not when he was alive, only when he was dead.
我哋注意到咧，其實聖經裏邊咧係幾時開始叫摩西係神嘅僕人咧？係佢死咗之後，而唔係佢在生嘅時候。
Yes, Moses was a great leader, a faithful servant. Yes, that's correct.
冇錯，即係摩西係一個好偉大嘅一個領袖，係神嘅僕人。
But there was no sense of self-elevation. No, I'm a great person. No. He was mentioned as a servant of the Lord only when he died, after he died.
但係佢絕對冇咧自我高抬，而係咧係佢死咗之後咧，聖經先稱佢為神嘅僕人。
The third thing the Bible tells us who Moses was, he was the meekest man on earth.
而第三方面咧，聖經就講到咧，佢係咧係極其謙和嘅人。
Now, why did the Bible tell us that?
點解聖經要咁話俾我哋？
Because he faced criticism from his own family. Miriam and Aaron challenged him and said, did God only talk to you and not talk to us?
點解咁話咧？原來咧，甚至佢嘅家人，即係佢嘅即係姊妹米利暗咧，都係咁樣去挑剔佢，話佢咧唔通神淨係用摩西呢個人做領袖？
May I encourage you, some of you serve the Lord and you receive a lot of criticism, right? Criticism all the time.
我哋知道咧，在座好多咧都係作為領袖嘅，亦都係好多時候被人抨擊嘅。
And I can tell you, if you read Moses' life, Moses faced numerous criticism and numerous complaints throughout his life. That was his life.
如果我哋睇即係摩西一生嘅人咧，真係佢受盡好多數不盡嘅嗰種嘅挑剔同埋批評。
Even faced challenges from his own family.
甚至咧喺佢自己家人咧都受到佢哋嘅抨擊。
And yet Moses never gave up to serve. Never gave up.
但係咧，摩西絕對咧從未放棄過。
And then the fourth line, God spoke to Moses face to face.
而另外一方面咧，就係聖經講到咧，神同摩西係面對面嘅去講説話。
In Exodus chapter 33, verse 10, whenever the people saw the pillar of the cloud standing at the entrance to the tents, they stood and worshipped. And then the Lord spoke to Moses face to face. Exodus 33, verse 11.
出埃及記33章10至11節，眾百姓看見雲柱立在會幕門前，都起來，各人咧在自己嘅帳棚裏邊嘅門口下拜。耶和華與摩西面對面説話，好像咧人與朋友説話一般。
The people recognized God spoke to Moses face to face.
所以咧，民眾咧都好睇得好清楚嘅，就係神同摩西咧親自嘅講説話。
You see, Moses never had to fight to prove himself.
摩西咧從唔需要咧係點樣去為自己爭取，而證實咧神係會同佢講説話。
Sometimes we are too keen to try to prove ourselves.
有時候
Too keen.
有時候咧，我哋太過着重咧係點樣去證實我哋自己係有用。
Moses never had to fight to prove himself. God was with him, and people recognized that spiritual authority in Moses.
但係摩西從唔需要咧係自己咁樣去爭取法，人人都可以見到，亦都係承認咧係神係使用佢嘅，係同佢有親切嘅關係。
So in summary, we see Moses, of course, he's a man of God.
所以我哋見到咧摩西確實係呢個屬神嘅人，
He's a servant of the Lord,
佢係咧神嘅牧人，
a humble man when he faced criticism,
係一個非常謙和嘅人，
and God spoke to him face to face.
並且咧神係親自同佢講説話。
People recognize his spiritual authority.
所有民眾咧都承認肯定咧佢呢個屬靈嘅領導。
And you say, well, hang on a minute, I'm not like Moses.
咁你可能話啊，咁但係我唔係好似摩西。
I'm not a spiritual giant like Moses. I mean, you talk to me about Moses, but that's not me at all.
你同我講到摩西咁，但係我唔係好似佢咁樣一個屬靈偉人啊嘛。
But we must not run away with the idea that Moses was some kind of Superman. He was not.
但係我哋唔好以為咧，摩西係一個甚至咩嘅超人。
He was not a kind of extraordinary person, but with many faults and weaknesses.
但係其實咧，摩西只不過係一個普通嘅人，其實佢亦都係有好多嘅軟弱嘅地方。
Page 4. Now, in the first 14 years of his life, he thought he was somebody, from Egypt. He was somebody important. He tried to help God.
其實咧，頭嗰40年咧，即係摩西以為自己係非同凡響嘅，因為佢當時喺埃及。
He was too eager to help God, I think.
佢咧係好急不及待嘅，要點樣幫神嘅手。
But God did not use him.
但係神喺嗰時候冇用佢。
Moses had to run away to Midian to avoid being killed.
摩西咧後來要逃到去咧米甸，否則咧就會俾人殺死。
So for the first 40 years, he saw his own importance.
所以咧頭嗰40年咧，佢以為自己係好重要。
And yet the next 40 years, he saw his impotence. He was nobody, really, nobody.
但係跟住嗰40年咧，佢先至睇到自己原來咧係冇咩特別嘅價值嘅。
He was just a little shepherd in Midian, being a nobody.
佢只不過咧喺米甸嗰度咧做一個咧牧羊人。
And he must have thought that God had abandoned him.
佢可能當時以為咧係神真係放棄咗佢。
Now after 80 years,
經過80年之後
God began to call a nobody to serve his purpose.
神就開始用呢個咧係好平凡嘅人去為佢作工。
And God allowed Moses to go through this journey of faith. That's a long period of training and preparation indeed.
喺當中嘅時候，神就俾佢咧係經過呢個咧受訓練嘅一個旅程，呢個一個好長嘅時間。
Why did I say the journey of faith?
點解我係一個信心嘅旅程咧？
Because the whole chapter in Hebrews 11 mentioned about Moses that he had to go through that journey of faith.
因為咧希伯來書嘅作者咧講到咧 係摩西點樣係經過呢個受訓練、受裝備呢個信心嘅旅程。
We're now on page 5. Now, in Hebrews chapter 11,
而家希伯來書11章
verse 23, it says, By faith, Moses' parents hid him for 3 months after he was born.
呢度講到咧，摩西生下來嘅時候咧，因着信就將佢咧藏咗3個月。
So you notice here, faith did not begin with Moses. Faith began with Moses' parents. You talk about God of generations. Parents had faith and hid Moses.
原來咧，即係呢個信心嘅開始唔係在於摩西，原來在於摩西嘅父母開始嘅。
So in verse 23 it says, By faith, Moses' parents hid him. By faith.
所以喺嗰節嘅聖經裏邊係因着信，佢嘅父母將佢咧係收藏咗3個月。
And verse 24, By faith, Moses had grown up. He refused to be known as the son of Pharaoh's daughter. By faith.
24節亦都話摩西因着信長大，就不肯稱為咧法老嘅女兒之子。
Verse 27, By faith he left Egypt, not fearing the king's anger.
27節，他因着信就離開埃及，不怕王怒。
Verse 28, By faith he kept the Passover and the application of blood.
第28節，他因着信就守咗逾越節，行咧灑血嘅禮。
Verse 29, By faith the people passed through the Red Sea as on dry ground.
29節，他因着信過紅海，而行乾地。
You see, this chapter wonderfully describes the God of generations, and people of different generations had faith in God.
所以咧喺呢度我哋見到咧，係講到一代再傳一代嘅時候，人咧係行住信去生活。
By faith, Moses' parents protected Moses.
因着信，摩西嘅父母咧係保護咗摩西。
By faith, Moses had to go through that different journey.
因着信，係摩西咧係渡過咧呢個旅程嘅各個嘅環節。
And also by faith, the people crossed the Red Sea.
正且咧係再下一代就係呢班嘅人，呢班以色列民係因着信而能夠渡過紅
And I
海。
think the Lord is challenging brothers and sisters here in CPC, different generations in CPC. It is by faith we continue. That's what the Bible is telling us. By faith only we can go forward.
所以我相信喺呢度咧，神係向我哋一個會眾挑戰，就係、我哋一代傳下去嗰時候咧，我哋咧憑着信心係往前走嘅。
But you say, well, by faith that's very conceptual.
咁你話因着信呢樣嘢好概念化喎。
But what does that mean by faith?
咁實際上係點解咧？
And of course there are different ways of looking at it.
我當然啦，可以從唔同嘅角度去睇呢件事。
But I have selected one particular passage in Exodus 33 to look at one example of how Moses demonstrated faith in not good times, in challenging times, in difficult times. How Moses journeyed by faith.
所以咧，我就揀咗一節嘅聖經做個例子，就係出埃及記33章喺呢個逆境嘅時候，好困難嘅時候，摩西嘅點樣憑着信係能夠繼續嘅帶領。
Now we're on page 6. Now we come to chapter 32 of Exodus.
而家咧，我哋嚟到咧出埃及記嘅32章。
Of course, this chapter you're familiar with. Moses was up on the mountain 40 days and 40 nights.
大家都會好熟悉啦，就係、摩西咧上咗西奈山，即係40晝夜。
And of course, there's this big contrast of what happened to Moses on the mountains and what happened on the desert floor. What happened to the people? There's a big contrast there.
喺呢個故事裏邊，我哋睇到咧，即係摩西喺山上面嘅經驗，同埋群眾咧喺地底喺下面嘅時候咧，嗰種嘅強烈嘅比對。
It was as if Moses was in Colorado here at this great retreat for 40 days with God.
就好似咧，即係摩西嚟咗Colorado呢個地方喺呢度營會40晝夜。
I'm not sure how you felt when you say you're going to be here 40 days and 40 nights.
我話要喺呢度過40晝夜，唔知大家覺得點樣啊？
You say, 我會死㗎 I will die. No, but Moses enjoyed the presence of God for 40 days, 40 nights.
但係摩西咧就係好享受同神嗰種嘅同在40晝夜。
But what happened on the ground was terrible.
但係喺下邊地底下咧就發生嘅事咧就非常。
People were getting restless and began to complain.
就係下邊嗰啲人咧等得好唔耐煩咧，就開始投訴啦。
You know the way how they describe Moses. As for this fellow Moses, We don't know what happened to him. As for this fellow Chris, we don't know what happened to him. Forget him. You know, kind of thing.
即係好似話，呢個人摩西都唔知佢做咗乜嘢嘅，咁啊。
And of course, Aaron was there not knowing what to do.
咁當然啦，亞倫喺嗰度咧，唔知點辦好。
And so, okay, collect all your gold, give it to me, those who have earrings, you know, give all your gold to me.
咁咧，亞倫就話：，你哋所有有啲咩金嘅首飾咧，係咪俾晒我？
And he made it into a cast, an idol cast, the shape of a calf.
佢哋就將啲金去陶造成一隻咧牛犢。
We don't know what happened to Moses.
我哋唔知道摩西就咁做咩。
So here's your God, worship the God in front of you. This is the golden calf.
呢隻就係金牛犢啦，咁你就呢個係你哋嘅神，你哋就拜呢個啦。
The people of God committed great sin against God.
所以我哋見到咧，民眾咧係犯咗好大嘅罪，係叛逆神。
Spiritual leadership is shown not often in good times, but in challenging times.
但係我哋見到咧，對神嘅嗰個忠誠咧，係喺啲逆境嘅時候咧，更加表達出嚟。
How did Moses demonstrate his faith in God?
嗱，摩西點樣喺呢個時候咧，係證實佢對神嗰個信心咧？
We are now on page 8. First, Moses accepts responsibilities when followers fail.
就係首先第一樣嘅就係摩西當佢帶領嘅群眾係失敗嘅時候，犯罪嘅時候，佢願意承擔呢個責任。
In a way, God was kind of testing Moses and challenged Moses.
其實咧係好似咧神喺呢度咧試煉緊摩西，係向佢挑戰。
Because how did God say to Moses? God said, "The people you led out of Egypt, they have become corrupt. You led the people out of Egypt. They have become corrupt." God, as if God was blaming Moses.
所以咧，好似咧聽起上嚟，好似係神喺度指責摩西，就話你係我帶出嚟，你帶出嚟嗰班人咧，現在咧係變成墮落到呢個地步。
I can imagine Moses say, "Well, hang on a minute. You told me to lead the people out of Egypt. You are saying that now I led the people out of Egypt. That's unfair, right? Unfair."
可能咧，摩西就話：喂，你叫我帶佢哋出嚟喎，唔係我要帶佢哋出嚟喎，你咁樣話我咧唔公平。
And I told you before, I can't lead these people. Now we're in this mess. Well, it's your problem, God.
咁啊，係你話咁樣做喎，唔係我自己出主意嘅喎。咁而家咧係一亂晒龍嘅時候咧，係你嘅問題，唔係我嘅問題。
But God has mercy. You see how God described, sort of put it to Moses.
咁我哋睇見咧，神係一個充滿慈愛嘅神，你聽下佢點樣去講摩西。
God says, "I will punish them."
神話我會責罰佢哋。
And
仲有咧
I will make you into a great nation. Verse 10.
第10節嘅話咧，我要使你嘅後裔咧成為大國。
God is ready to press the reset button. Reset. I'm going to do a reset.
神咧要再試去開機啊，即係再重新嚟過。
Well, I mean, Moses always had wanted to do something for God, right? Wanted to be important. This is now the chance to be important. God is going to make him into a great nation. This is now the opportunity. This is now the chance.
但摩西素來都想為神做大事啊嘛。咁而家呢個機會嚟啦，而家係最好嘅機會。神咧係話要使到佢嘅後裔成為大國。
But notice how Moses responded.
但我哋睇下摩西點樣回應。
Verse 11 was, Moses sought the favor of the Lord his God. Moses said, No, don't make me into a great nation. This is your people. You care for them. Do not abandon them.
但係摩西呢度話係懇求神，神你唔好咁樣做啊！你唔好放棄你自己嘅子民。
In verse 11, you read here that, why should your anger burn against your people, whom you brought out of Egypt with great power?
佢話喺呢度咧，佢話即係神點解咧？你要咧，即係為咗你嘅名嘅緣故咧，唔好咁樣放棄呢班人。
We are on page 9. Why should Egyptians say it was with evil intended he brought them out to kill them in the mountains to wipe them out of the face of the earth?
佢話咧，即係點解咧？即係要向佢哋發怒咧，將佢哋滅絕咧，使到你嘅使到咧，即係埃及人咧會話你咁樣對待你嘅群眾。
Turn from your fierce anger.
佢話求你咧唔好發熱怒。
Despite the failures of the people,
係雖然咧啲人係咁樣係失敗而犯罪。
Moses became the important mediator in pleading with God to relent from anger.
而摩西就喺呢個時候咧，成為一個嘅中保，係為到咧佢嘅民眾咧去懇求。
Moses accepted the responsibility when people failed.
當佢自己嘅民眾咧係失敗嘅時候，摩西願意承擔呢個責任。
Notice the contrast
我哋睇下呢
with
個
Aaron.
同亞倫嘅比對。
Moses challenged Aaron and said, "What have you done? You know, you make this golden calf. What have you done?"
所以即係摩西就問亞倫：你做咗啲咩咧？點解你要為做呢個金牛犢咧？
And Aaron gave this most ridiculous answer.
而亞倫咧就俾一個咧即係好可笑嘅一個答案。
In chapter 32, verse 24.
喺第32章24節。
And how did Aaron respond?
亞倫點樣回答咧
He said, "They gave me the gold, I threw it into the fire, and out came the calf."
佢話咧，佢哋將啲金都俾晒我嘅時候，我掉入火裏面，咁呢隻牛犢咧就走咗出嚟啦。
What kind of answer is that?
咁呢個係咩嘅答案嚟嘅
He said, "You look at Moses and Aaron.
我哋睇下摩西同亞倫。
Moses' concern was the honor of God and the reputation of God.
摩西所關注嘅咧係神自己嘅名，係神自己嘅名譽。
Aaron's concern was, "Don't blame me, avoiding responsibilities."
但係亞倫嘅所關注嘅就係唔好咧孭鑊即係唔好咧係俾人咧責罵佢。
Moses pleaded with God to remember the covenant God had made with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
摩西所懇求嘅就係求神咧係紀念到咧佢同亞伯拉罕、以撒、雅各所立嘅約。
Aaron's concern was, "Well, hang on, it's not my fault. Don't blame me, blame the people."
但係亞倫所關注嘅就係哇唔關我事嘅，即係你唔好怪我。
Slide 10, page 10. Moses is in touch with his true emotions.
我哋睇見咧就係摩西咧係好能夠表達佢真正嘅情緒嘅。
Page 11.
係咪？
Page 11. Now, in verse 19, we are told that, when Moses approached the camp, he saw the golden calf and the people dancing.
喺第19節講到咧，摩西接近呢個營池嘅時候咧，睇見呢個牛犢，又可睇見啲人跳舞。
He was so angry, he had the 10 commandments. He threw the tablets out and broke the tablets, and then he took the calf and burned it in the fire and ground it to powder and scattered it on the water and made the Israelites drink it. He was really, really angry.
當時咧佢就發烈怒，佢揸住咧兩塊嘅法板，就將兩塊法板咧掉喺地下打爛咗，又將咧呢個牛犢咧係用火焚燒，之後咧磨成粉，然後咧撒喺水面上，要啲以色列人去飲。
He was not slow in reviewing his own anger because people had committed great sin.
佢心裏邊呢種嘅義怒咧，係並冇任何嘅保留就發出嚟啦。
Moses' emotion, he was real, he was authentic, he was vulnerable.
摩西咧係好真實嘅，雖然喺呢個時候佢亦都表達到佢嗰種嘅脆弱，但係佢係好真誠嘅。
I'm not sure whether you have seen Chris becoming very angry and threw the Bible on the floor because he committed great sin. I don't know. J.O. Sanders, in his book Spiritual Leadership, mentions
Sanders 咧喺佢嗰本書嘅書裏邊咧係咁講。
He says spiritual anger is an essential quality of spiritual leadership.
佢話咧，其實喺屬靈嘅領導上面咧，屬靈嘅呢種嘅義怒咧係必須有嘅。
And yet, unfortunately, my own anger or our anger is often carnal anger, human anger, not spiritual anger.
我哋都會發嬲，但係好可惜咧，係極多嘅時候咧，我哋所發嘅怒咧係人性嘅怒。
I work with OMF leaders.
我同咧即係海外基督使團嘅好多同工一齊做嘢。
I still remember one time one of my colleagues was so angry in the meeting.
我記得咧一個同工咧有一次開會嘅時候非常憤怒。
He took his file and then threw it onto the floor. The papers were all lying on the floor.
佢揸住呢個檔案咧就掉喺地下，啲紙張咧四圍飛。
He walked out of the room. Walked out.
佢就行咗離開個呢個會議。
1 hour later, he walked back.
1個鐘頭後咧，佢翻嚟啦。
He joined the meeting as if nothing had happened.
佢再一次離開會，好似咧冇發生過任何事咁樣。
That was not spiritual anger. That was carnal anger.
呢種咧唔係屬靈嘅憤怒，而係人性嘅憤怒。
Page 12. Moses is not afraid to confront the wrong and carry out necessary discipline.
就係咧，摩西咧係有呢個膽量去面對一啲做錯嘅事，係執行咧呢個紀律。
That day was a very sad day.
嗰日咧一個好即係使人憂愁嘅一日。
If you read chapter 32, verse 27,
如果我哋讀即係27節
，3,000 people died. 3,000 people died. It was a very serious consequence when people sinned.
嗰日咧即係3000人咧係被殺。我哋見到咧即係犯罪嗰種嘅嚴重性啊。
I'm sure that must have hurt Moses a great deal.
我相信咧嗰日受到咁嘅懲罰嘅民眾，摩西一定非常傷心。
He had to carry out discipline.
佢要執行呢個紀律。
But spiritual discipline is never punitive in nature.
但係其實咧屬靈嘅呢種嘅紀律咧，絕對咧唔係淨係為咗係即係點樣去罰人。
Spiritual discipline always has in mind restoration, not punitive.
其實咧即係屬靈嘅呢種紀律咧，係為咗咧係再重新嘅去興起一個人。
You must see that the severity of the punishment matches with the degree of commitment Moses had for the people.
我哋見到咧，即係摩西執行呢個紀律呢種嘅程度咧，係同佢對佢嘅人民嗰種嘅委身係相稱嘅。
Page 14. How Moses prayed to God. Page 14. How Moses prayed to God.
咁摩西點樣向神禱告咧
He cried to God and said, God, you've seen the great sin that these people have committed.
佢話耶和華，你呢班嘅百姓你真係犯咗大罪。
They make themselves gods of gold.
佢哋咧係做咗一個嘅金像。
Please forgive their sins.
求你咧係赦免佢哋嘅罪。
And then how did he pray? He said, if not, blot me out of the book you have written. Blot me out of the book you have written.
咁跟住佢就話：如果唔係嘅時候咧，求你將我即係你自己所寫嘅冊上，我嘅名咧係塗抹咗佢。
Moses was deeply concerned for the people. He said, blot me out of the book. Please forgive them.
摩西咧係非常之關心到佢呢個民眾，即係話咧唔好咧係即係抹殺咗佢哋。如果係必要嘅時候，你就將我嘅名係塗抹。
It must be so difficult for Moses to carry out that discipline. It was so painful.
對於摩西嚟講，係要執行咁嘅紀律咧，其實係非常非常之痛心，係好難嘅一回事。
Page 15. As I told you, Moses seeks spiritual restoration. We're on page 15.
跟住咧，我哋睇到咧，就係摩西自己尋求一個屬靈方面嘅重造
And now we come to page 16. That Moses seeks spiritual restoration in chapter 33.
喺第33章嘅時候咧，我哋見到摩西點樣係尋求復興。
If you read chapter 33, verse 13, it says, if you are pleased with me, teach me your way so that I may know you and continue to find favor with you.
喺第13節嗰度話：我如今若在你眼前蒙恩，求你將你嘅道指示我，使到我可以認識你，好在你眼前蒙恩，求你想到你嘅民。
Remember that this nation is your people.
記得咧呢群嘅民眾咧係你自己嘅子民。
And the Lord replied, my presence will go with you and I will give you rest.
咁亦神就對佢話：我必親自嘅和你同在，使到你得安息。
One spiritual lesson I learned here from Moses is this.
我喺呢度咧，從摩西身上面學到嘅功課咧
Of course, the people had committed great sin.
冇錯，啲群眾咧真係犯咗好大嘅罪。
But how Moses prayed?
但係我見到摩西點樣禱告。
Moses did not pray and say, God, bring the changes in them. That's not how he prayed.
佢唔係話神啊，求你改變呢班人。
He said, let the change begins with me, with me.
但係佢嘅禱告就話：求你改變，首先改變我先。
He says, teach me your way. He didn't say teach them your way. No, he said, teach me. Let the change begins with me. I need to change.
佢話咧，求你指示，將你嘅道指示俾我。求你咧，首先係從我開始改變我。
And so when you come to chapter 34,
如果我嚟到34章嘅時候，
when Moses went up to the mountain again the second time,
當摩西再第二次嘅上到山上面嘅時候，
when he came down from the mountain,
當佢從山上面落嚟，
you know what happened?
你知道又發生咩事咧？
If you read chapter 34 verse 10,
如果我哋睇下第34章10節，
his face was radiant.
佢個面咧係發光嘅。
Have you seen brothers and sisters' face radiant?
你有冇見到弟兄姊妹個面發光？
You look at others and see if their face is radiant. Why is Moses' face radiant? Why?
點解摩西個面會發光咧？
Not because he used some special face cream. Not because of that. No, that doesn't make you radiant.
唔係因為佢用咗某種嘅面膏啊，冇啲咁嘅貨品啊。
His face was radiant because he really was with God and walked closely with God, even he faced those challenges and difficulties.
就係因為雖然面對咁多嘅挑戰，但係佢係同神同在，並且咧同神係面對面。
And when his face was radiant, we were told that people were afraid. Why were they afraid? Because they saw God with him. They recognized Moses' spiritual authority. People were afraid.
點解啲人會懼怕咧？見到摩西個面發光，因為佢哋知道咧，佢曾經係面對同神係面對面，並且咧現在佢哋會承認即係接受咧摩西呢個嘅領導權。
Spiritual authority is never recognized because you have a nice title.
人嘅接受我哋嘅屬靈領導能力咧，唔係因為我哋有咩名堂。
Your title, your position, your status will not give you spiritual authority. No, it won't.
你有咩嘅名銜，有咩嘅地位咧，唔會能夠俾到你呢個屬靈嘅領導力嘅。
But when Moses was with God and experienced God's presence, people recognized that spiritual authority. You don't have to fight for it.
但係當摩西係同神係共處嘅時候，當摩西咧係同神有呢個直接嘅交通嘅時候，人哋咧就可以見到咧呢種嘅屬靈嘅領導力啦。
Moses reflected the glory of God. That's why his face was radiant.
亦都可以話摩西咧係反映到神嘅榮耀，因為咁嘅緣故咧，人就接受。
And I pray that will be true for CBC, that we may reflect the glory of God. So our face is radiant.
所以咧，我都希望 CPC 都係咁樣，能夠咧反映神嘅榮耀，而我哋嘅面容咧係燦爛嘅。
Now we're on page 17. Now we come to Joshua. We have now sort of looked briefly at the life of Moses. Now we need to come to Joshua as we need to examine the second person.
而家正話咧，我哋睇完摩西啦，而家我哋睇下咧約書亞呢個人。
Now, if Moses is a man of faith, I would say Joshua is a man of courage.
如果我哋話咧，即係摩西係一個有信心嘅人咧，咁我哋就話約書亞咧係一個壯膽嘅人，係一個係好有勇氣嘅人。
And no wonder in chapter 1, 3 times God told Joshua, be strong and courageous. 3 times, verse 6, verse 9, and also verse 7.
喺約書亞記第一章咧，6節、7節、9節咧，神係講3次嘅，係叫佢要剛強壯膽。
Verse 6, be strong and courageous because you will lead these people to inherit the land.
你當第6節，你當剛強壯膽，因為咧你必使隻百姓承受那地為業。
Now, what was the context? Moses had just died, and God told Joshua, you are now the man to lead the people.
呢個前文後理係點樣咧？其實講到呢度嘅時候咧，係摩西已經係去咗世，而咧神咧就叫約書亞咧要帶領以色列民咧係進應佢哋。
When I was younger, particularly when I was a teenager,
當我10零歲嘅時候，年青嘅時候，
I was a very timid person, really timid.
我當時咧即係好怕醜嘅，即係唔出
You may
聲。
not believe it, it's true.
你可能唔相信啦，但係事實嚟係咁啊。
I never liked to be a leader.
我真係唔想中意做嘢嘅領
If I
袖。
was in a crowd, I always would like to stand in the back, never want to be in the front.
如果有一紮人咧，我通常都企喺後邊嘅。
And I admired those who was courageous and strong and good speakers. I admire them because I would be standing at the back.
我好羨慕嗰啲咧能夠喺前面帶領人咧，即係口才又好啊，係有帶領能力嗰啲人。
And one little secret also, I was particularly timid if I was sitting among the girls.
尤其是一個秘密講俾大家聽咧，尤其同埋一班女仔坐埋一齊。
I would like to hide my face. I didn't want to show my face. I was very kind of not comfortable with myself.
我咧就想匿埋嘅，其實咧覺得好唔舒服嘅，即係唔敢出聲嘅。
Now Joshua here faced a very interesting dilemma.
而家咧，約書亞咧面對一個好大嘅一個嘅矛盾。
The great leader had died. The great leader had died.
而家呢個偉大嘅領袖摩西咧死咗。
The great leader who led the people out of Egypt, crossed the Red Sea, who had the Ten Commandments, had died.
呢個咧係帶領呢班嘅群眾係過紅海，並且咧嚟到咧係接受十誡嘅呢個偉大領袖。
And God told Joshua and said, "Now you are to lead the people." Now, who could really step in Moses' shoes? No one can, because Moses was a great leader.
而家咧神就叫約書亞，而家你帶領呢班人啦。邊個能夠咧係即係站喺即係摩西嘅地位咧？即係一個好困難嘅事。
But there's one important lesson I'm learning here.
但喺呢度咧，我學到一個好重要嘅功課。
God is telling me one very important lesson.
但神喺呢度話俾我聽一個重要嘅功課。
God is the same God who will lead the people.
呢度咧就係話呢個帶領群眾嘅人喺呢個時候咧，仍然係以前嗰個神。
Leaders may change.
領袖咧可以不停嘅改變。
Elders may change.
長老咧不停嘅改變。
The moderator can change. What's that? Sorry, do I need to repeat?
It's time to change. 即係會正可以改變。
But God does not.
但係神係不改變嘅。
God is the God of generations.
因為咧佢係世世代代嘅神。
But we may ask the question, well, how did Joshua demonstrate courage anyway?
約書亞喺呢度點樣去表達佢呢份嘅勇氣呢？
Because, Joshua does not suddenly become courageous because God said be courageous, right? I mean, it doesn't happen just suddenly like that.
約書亞並唔係話突然間神話你要剛強壯膽，佢突然間就好有膽量。
I'm not sure how many of you know, many of you know how to swim, right? Swimming.
但我相信大家好多都識游水。
But some of you may be afraid of swimming, right?
或者都有啲咧係唔敢游水嘅。
If a coach tells you and says, be strong and courageous and dumps you into the swimming pool, I don't think you can swim like that, just be strong and courageous, right? It doesn't happen suddenly.
如果你嘅教練話，你游水咁就將你抌去個水池嗰度咧，你搞唔掂㗎係嘛？唔係咁樣學㗎嘛。
There must be a journey of preparation and development. There's a journey.
我哋知道一定要經過某種嘅一個旅程，
Page 18 now, page 18 now. Okay. Because first is the journey of what we call practical exposure or practical experience.
第一點咧就係我哋要經過一種屬靈嘅經驗同埋屬靈嘅際遇。
Page 19. Now, we were told the first battle they had to fight against was the battle against the Amalekites.
我哋知道咧係約書亞帶住呢班群眾咧，第一次嘅打仗咧就係打亞瑪力人啦。
They just came out from Egypt and they faced the first battle against the Amalekites.
佢哋從埃及出嚟之後，而家第一次咧係要面對呢啲亞瑪力人咧。
It's interesting that Moses told Joshua and said, "You are the one that will go and choose some men and fight against the Amalekites."
神咧就對約書亞話：你就係要帶領呢班嘅群眾咧出去迎敵、出去打仗嘅。
You may say, "Well, what did Moses do then? He had nothing to do." No, that's not true.
咁究竟摩西又做咩咧？唔係冇嘢做喎。
We were told that Moses was up on the hill praying. His hand was up praying to God.
而家摩西原來咧喺山上面咧係舉高手咧向神嚟禱告。
There were times when Moses got tired.
有時候咧摩西覺得攰啦。
And then Aaron and Hur held up his hand, one on each side and one on the other, so that his hand remained steady until sunset. The whole day he was crying to God, ask God to help Joshua.
咁咧就咧係有兩個人喺側邊咧，係當佢手攰嘅時候咧，係抬起佢兩隻手繼續嘅舉手。依家係當佢舉手禱告嘅時候咧，約書亞喺下邊咧就打贏啦。
Nothing is more important in spiritual growth than personal experience.
我哋知道喺我哋個人嘅屬靈性成長裏邊咧，最緊要嘅就係自己嘅屬靈經驗。
You know, Joshua was probably a young man at that time.
喺嗰個時候咧，約書亞可能係一個好年青嘅人。
And Moses said, "You go and fight against Amalekites."
摩西就話：你而家出去咧，帶領打呢啲亞瑪力人。
He wasn't sitting in a classroom talking about fighting the spiritual battle. No, it was not a classroom experience. It was the real experience in the front line.
摩西並唔喺呢個時候喺課室裏邊咧係講授點樣打仗，而家真係咧約書亞喺出邊咧有實際打仗嘅經驗。
And Joshua experienced personally what it meant to trust God.
而係約書亞呢個時候咧，真係學習到咧信靠神係點樣樣嘅。
He experienced the powerful presence of God.
佢經驗到自己經驗到咧神嘅同在係點樣樣嘅。
And he also witnessed how Moses, the senior leader, prayed for him.
佢亦都咧感受到，而家經驗到咧係摩西佢嘅領袖係點樣咧為佢係禱告支持。
Let me have a word with, particularly here, the senior brothers and sisters.
我想同啲咧係在座嘅長者咧講幾句話。
Sometimes it's very easy for us to say, oh, now is the time for the new generation to take the lead.
因為咧好多時候我哋覺得好容易話咧，而家係啲後生仔去做㗎啦，唔使我哋做。
And we can sit back and relax.
我哋可以咧坐喺度，可以輕鬆下。
But that was not the pattern here.
但係呢度俾我哋見到嘅安排唔係咁樣。
Moses was not kind of saying, okay, this is your job now, I sit back and relax. No, that was not the picture.
摩西並唔係話咧，而家到約書亞呢個後生仔去打啦，而家咧我可以坐埋一邊。
Moses never gave up but supported Joshua in praying for him all the time as he was fighting against the Amalekites.
摩西咧並唔係喺呢度係休息點樣樣嘅，而係咧不斷嘅時刻嘅係為到咧前面打仗嘅約書亞咧禱告。
And may I encourage the younger leaders, younger brothers and sisters here as well.
我亦都係喺呢個時候咧係鼓勵啲咧年輕嘅弟兄姊妹們。
May I encourage you also to rise up to the challenge like Joshua did. Rise up to the challenge.
我亦都咧希望你哋好似約書亞一樣咧，能夠咧係出嚟係面對呢個挑戰。
Say yes to God.
係對神講話，我願意。
Let God encourage you through direct, frontline, practical ministry.
讓神咧係俾你咧有一個親身嘅直接嘅個人嘅經驗。
Don't sit back.
唔好淨係坐。
Get involved. Get involved.
去參與即係一切嘅事工。
So how can you grow if you're not involved?
如果你唔參與嘅時候，你點樣能夠增長咧？
But spiritual growth is not attained just by practical experience. That is not enough.
淨係即係呢個經驗咧，係未曾能夠咧俾到我哋屬靈嘅增長。
There is also the inner journey. The inner journey.
我哋內心嘅旅程。
Page 20. Now we come to page 21. The inner journey. A few aspects I want to talk about inner journey.
講到內心嘅旅程咧，我都想講幾方面。
First is what I call being together. The inner journey of being together.
首先咧，我哋講到咧喺屬靈增長裏邊咧，我哋同其他弟兄姊妹一同嘅增長。
Now in Exodus 24, we are told that Moses went up to the mountain.
喺第出咗佢第14章咧，講到摩西上山啦。
Interestingly, Moses already at that time had the 70 elders with him. The leaders were with him.
嗰陣時候咧，即係摩西已經選咗70個長老咧，係同佢一齊領導。
It's very interesting. He left the 70 elders at the bottom of the mountain, but he chose one, that is Joshua, and said, "Come with me to the mountain." He chose Joshua to be with him.
佢咧將呢70個長老咧留喺山下邊，淨係帶叫住一個人，就係約書亞同佢一齊咧上山。
He was with God.
佢係同神同在。
And yet he was with Joshua.
而且約書亞咧亦都喺嗰度。
You see, what Joshua learned was not so much as what Moses said. No, I don't think so.
其實咧約書亞所學到嘅唔係淨係摩西講乜嘢。
What Joshua learned was what it means to be in the presence of God, to learn from the Lord.
而約書亞所學到嘅時候，就係睇到咧，原來同神同在係點樣嘅。
Often for those who have been Christians for some time, we often use two words: the doing and the being.
好多時候我哋講到教會裏邊講到咧，即係我哋究竟係咩人同埋做咩事兩種嘅分別。
But there's one other word which is missing in the middle, apart from the doing and the being.
但係咧，除咗係咩人做咩事咧，中間仲有啲嘢咧未講到。
Often what is missing is the middle word is being with, not just being and doing, but being with.
呢兩度嘅中間咧，就係講到我哋同啲乜嘢人喺埋一齊。
Page 22. Let me refer to Mark. Jesus chose or appointed the 12 that they might be with him and that he might send them out to preach. Not just to send them out to preach, but they might be with him. That is so important.
好咧，我哋睇下馬可福音第三章，你講到咧，即係耶穌揀選12個門徒。呢度話咧，他就設立了12個人，要他們常和自己同在，也差他們去傳道。
And I pray that will be true for CPC as well. It's not just a doing and being, but being with one another. Yesterday, last night, we heard stories of the mentoring. It's being with time together in the presence of God. That is important.
所以我咧希望我哋即係喺 CPC 亦都係一樣，唔係淨係咩人做咩嘢，而係中間咧我哋同邊啲人同在。琴晚我哋見到呢個節目咧，就係講到一代傳一代嘅，我哋同其他嘅弟兄姊妹喺度彼此嘅支持。
Page 23. But there is another part of inner journey, and that is what I call spiritual discernment as well.
仲有咧，即係另外一方面咧，就係我哋嘅屬靈嘅洞察力嘅。
You know, they came down from the mountain.
佢哋再喺山上面落嚟啦。
And Joshua heard the noise and said, "Whoa, that's the noise of the war cry, the sound of war in the camp."
咁約書亞聽到啲聲音喎，好似聽到係打仗嘅聲音喎。
And of course, Joshua was concerned the Israelites they were attacked by the enemies.
咁佢咧係擔心以色列民咧係被外邦所攻擊。
Moses said, "No, that's not the sound of war. It is the sound of party, dancing. They were enjoying themselves."
但係摩西話唔係呢個唔係打仗嘅聲音，呢個咧係唱歌係啲人咧喺度慶祝嘅聲音。
You see the difference in discernment?
你可以睇到即係嗰個屬靈嘅洞察。
Moses as a senior leader discerned what was right. Joshua got it wrong. He said, "Oh, they were being attacked." Moses said, "No, this is the sound of partying. They were enjoying themselves. They were worshiping, this golden calf."
摩西咧作為一個有經驗嘅領袖咧，能夠分別出嚟話呢個唔係打仗嘅聲音，呢個係啲人咧喺度好開心，喺度敬拜呢隻金牛族嘅聲音。
And as brothers and sisters, we need to help each other to discern God's will together, not just by yourself. Because sometimes we can get it wrong. We can really get it totally wrong. We need others to help us to discern together.
所以當我哋主內弟兄姊妹咧，我哋要互相嘅幫助，以至到我哋有一個正確嘅屬靈嘅洞察力。以至到咧，我哋知道咩事係啱，咩事係錯。
One time I know a sister who told a pastor and said, "God is calling me to reach out to the tribal people in the Amazon River." Amazon River.
有一次咧，即係有個姊妹就嚟話：牧師啊，我聽到神嘅聲音係呼召咧，要我去到咧非洲亞馬遜河嗰度咧，去嗰度咧係傳揚福音。
And the pastor asked her a very simple question. How do you know God is calling you to the Amazon River?
咁牧師就問佢好簡單嘅問題，咁你點聽到神點樣講咧？叫你去亞馬遜河嗰度咧？
She said, "One night I was having my shower."
有一晚咧，我沖涼嘅時候。
And that night I was tired, so I turned up the temperature a little bit. There is quite a bit of steam in the bathroom.
咁佢話咧嗰晚咧我比較攰，所以要花灑咧開熱少
I
少。
was really enjoying myself in the shower.
所以咧成個沖涼房咧
And I saw the steam.
蒸氣咧，咁我即
And
係
the picture came to me, Amazon River.
咁喺蒸氣當中咧，我見到呢一個字話即係亞馬遜河。
So God must be calling me to the Amazon
咁
River.
一定係咧神差我去亞馬遜河嘅地方
And
啦。
the pastor asked her,
咁牧師問佢：
"Does anyone else think that you are going to the Amazon River?"
仲有冇其他人認為神係咁樣差遣你咧
And？when she talks to everybody in the church, nobody thinks that she should be going to the Amazon River.
當佢問其他教會所嘅弟兄姊妹咧，冇人認為咧神係咁樣差遣佢嘅，
Because she can get it so wrong.
因為咧我哋可以咧真係冚唪唥誤解咗。
The inner journey of discernment, we need help from one another. We need one another.
我哋咧係彼此互相需要對方嘅幫助，以至到咧有正確嘅
Page
屬靈
24.
洞察
There
力。
is one other lesson we need to learn in the spiritual journey.
就喺
Page
呢個屬靈
24.
嘅旅程裏邊，仲有一個要學嘅功課，
What I call it involves finding true security in God.
就係咧喺神嘅裏邊 能夠學到呢份嘅真正嘅安穩。
Numbers chapter 11.
民數記第11章。
It's a long chapter, so let me summarize the story here.
其實呢章好長嘅，等我咧係綜合一下咧呢章講乜嘢。
Moses was tired. He said, "There's too much work for me. I can't handle it all."
摩西你覺得好攰啦，太多嘢要做啦，我真係搞唔掂。
And God encouraged him and said, "Don't worry. Select 70 leaders. I will put my spirit on them as I put my spirit on you."
咁神話唔緊要啊，你可以咧去揾70個長老出嚟幫助你。我俾你嘅靈咧，你分啲俾佢哋。
Let them come to the tabernacle, and I will put my spirit on them.
叫佢哋咧嚟到呢個會幕嘅當中，我就將我哋靈咧係賜俾佢哋。
But 2 of these leaders did not listen. They kind of said, "No, who is this Moses telling us what to do? I'm going to stay in the camp. I'm not coming to the tabernacle."
但係當時咧有2個嘅長老咧就唔願聽摩西嘅話，唔肯嚟。
And yet God's spirit also was on these 2 leaders who refused to listen to Moses.
但係雖然係咁咧，神嘅靈仍然係降喺呢2個咧唔聽話冇嚟嘅長老嘅身上。
And Joshua, as a young leader, was a bit upset.
咁當時嚟講，約書亞作為一個年輕嘅領袖咧，
He
就
told
非常嬲啦。
Moses,
佢就話俾摩西聽，
said, "These 2 guys did not listen to you.
呢2個人咧唔聽話喎，
Stop them.
你要停止佢哋，
They should not be part of the elders group."
唔能夠咧成為呢個長老嘅呢班長老嘅其中一份子。
How did Moses respond?
咁摩西點樣回答
In
咧？
Numbers chapter 11,
喺民數記11章
in verse 29,
第19節，
Moses replied, "Are you jealous for my sake? I wish that all the Lord's people were prophets and the Lord would put his spirit on them."
摩西就對約書亞話：你為我個緣故嫉妒人麼？惟願咧耶和華嘅百姓都受咁説話。
You see, Moses demonstrated grace.
所以我哋見到咧，即係摩西有呢種嘅恩典嘅表達。
Even in that, 恩慈
嘅表達。
Yeah. Grace and acceptance.
就係咧，就能夠願意接受他人。
You know, Moses' focus was on God's grace and his provision.
神當然啦，佢係即係見到嘅係神為佢嘅，即係對佢嗰份嘅即係恩慈。
One thing I learned from Moses here, he was not threatened or upset just because people did not listen to him. He was not easily threatened.
喺呢度喺摩西身上學到嘅功課咧，就係、雖然有啲人係敵擋佢，係唔聽佢話，但係佢冇因為咁嘅緣故咧，就覺得咧冇咗呢種嘅即係安全感。
That true security is found in God. He was not easily threatened.
呢個真正嘅安全感同穩妥咧，係喺神嘅裏面。
While the younger leader Joshua said, "Oh, we stop them. They should not be part of us."
雖然即係約書亞作為一個年青人就話唔得，我哋要阻擋佢哋，唔好俾佢咁做。
So Joshua also needs to grow up as well.
所以我哋見到咧，約書亞都要不斷嘅成長嘅。
I talk about, the journey of practical experience.
正話我哋講到咧，即係我哋喺呢個旅程上邊需要有咧個人嘅經驗。
And then spiritual discernment.
然後咧，我哋見到呢個屬靈嘅呢個嘅分辨力。
I have 5 to 10 more minutes. I will now come to the journey of faith in page 25. Journey of faith.
仲有50分鐘嘅時候咧，我而家講到咧一個信心嘅旅程。
Now, journey of faith, of course, there are different stories we can tell. Page 26.
當然講到信心嘅旅程咧，我哋可以講好多唔同嘅故事啊。
Of course, you know the famous story of the 12 spies to investigate the land.
我哋都記得即係有探子咧係被差去咧去睇下咧呢個應許地裏邊嘅情況係點樣嘅。
The land with milk and honey.
嗰度咧係流奶與蜜之地。
Of course, they came back with the fruits as well.
佢哋翻嚟嘅時候咧，帶住喺嗰度所收成嘅果實。
And actually, they encouraged people and say, here are the fruits you can see. It's really a land flowing with milk and honey.
你睇下呢度就係嗰啲嘅果實啊！呢個真係咧流奶與蜜之地。
But they say, we cannot attack them because the people are powerful.
但係咧，我哋冇攻擊嗰個嘅人，因為嗰度啲人咧個個都好高大嘅。
And the cities are fortified.
並且你嗰啲嘅城邑咧，冚唪唥都係有好堅固嘅城牆。
And here, this is where we see the difference. The men of faith, Joshua and Caleb.
但喺呢度咧，我哋就睇到分別啦，即係有信心嘅人同冇信心嘅人分別。
The 10 saw the big giants and their little God.
嗰啲有10個嘅探子咧，所見到咧就係見到好 大嘅即係好高大嘅人，見到咧神好細。
But Joshua and Caleb saw a great God and the little giants. That's what the difference
但
is.
係約書亞同加力咧就唔同啦，佢哋睇到嘅就係一個好偉大嘅神，係一個好少少嘅巨人。
That is the journey of faith.
呢個就係信心嘅旅程。
Page 27. Now that Moses had died
而家咧講到即係摩西死啦，
and Joshua had to lead the people,
而家約書亞要帶領群眾，
they were to cross the river Jordan.
佢哋要過呢個約旦河。
And it was during the flood stage. It's the worst time to cross the river. The worst time. The flood stage.
而家呢約旦河係泛濫嘅時候，其實咧即係要過約旦河呢個時候就最差㗎。
And yet the priests stepped into the river Jordan.
而當祭司們係首先踏腳入到去呢個約旦河
And
嘅時
then
候，
the water stopped flowing.
咁咧呢個河水就冚唪唥係止住。
And you may think, whoa, Joshua, you must be a great military strategist.
咁咧你可能話哇約書亞真係咧一個好犀利嘅打仗嘅策士。
Or a very knowledgeable geologist. You know when the water will stop. That's not true, right?
你係地質學好即係嘅專家，你知道咧咩時候呢啲河水會停嘅。
Page 28. Page 28. That's not true.
其實呢個唔啱嘅。
How did Joshua instruct the people?
約書亞點樣去指示呢個民眾咧？
He said, watch the priests as they carry the ark.
當呢個祭司帶住約櫃入去河水嘅時候，
Follow the ark
就跟住呢個約櫃，
as you have never been this way before.
因為你哋從嚟都未曾嚟過呢度嘅。
What is the ark? The ark contains the word of God, the Ten Commandments.
呢個約櫃係有咩咧？裏邊係裝住咧呢個嘅石板，呢個十誡嘅約板。
Very soon there will be the presidential election in the U.S.
美國咧將快咧有呢個總統選舉。
What do we hear? Follow me, follow me.
我哋聽到咩咧？
Vote for me.
跟隨我啦，投我一票啦。
But here I learned something from Joshua. Joshua never said, follow me. He says, follow the ark, follow God, must focus on God. Let your eyes never depart from God's law and commandments.
但係呢度
Don't follow me, follow God.
約書亞並唔係話你跟隨我啦，跟隨我啦，而係佢話你跟住呢個約櫃係跟隨咧神嘅律法、神自己嘅話語。
The focus was not on the leader. The focus said, focus on God only.
佢要求弟兄姊妹所注視嘅唔係嗰個領袖，而係咧要跟隨咧呢位神。
Page 29. There's another lesson of journey of faith.
喺呢度咧係喺信心嘅旅程上面咧第二個功
Now
課。
they are approaching Jericho.
而家佢哋就嚟接近耶利哥啦。
And Joshua saw the angel.
約書亞見到一個天使，
And the man with the sword.
呢個天使咧揸住一把嘅劍。
And Joshua confidently asked, now, are you for me or are you for the enemy?
咁約書亞咧就好有即係膽量咁問佢，究竟你係幫我哋定係幫對方㗎？
This angel said, no, as commander of the Lord, I have now come.
佢話呢個天使咧就話我係耶和華軍隊嘅元帥。
And then, interestingly, notice that the angel told Joshua the same thing as the Lord told Moses.
我哋呢度咧見到咧，呢個嘅天使對約書亞所講話咧，就係神對佢所講嘅説話。
Angel said, take off your sandals, for you are standing on holy ground. You are serving a holy God.
咁呢個嘅即係耶和華元帥嘅即係軍隊嘅元帥就對約書亞話：你要咧係除上各上嘅鞋脱鞋嚟，因為你所站嘅地方係聖
We
地。
talk about God of generations.
我哋講到咧呢個係世世代代嘅神。
Whichever generation you belong to, we are to fear the holy God.
無論你係出自邊一個世代，我哋都要敬畏耶和華。
Page 30. Because God told Joshua, page 30, God told
因
Joshua,
為神咧係曾經對約書亞咁樣話：
why did I dry up River Jordan?
佢話我點解要使到呢約旦個河嘅水乾咗？
I'm going to tell you the reason why.
我而家話俾你聽係點解？
So that all the peoples of the earth might know the powerful hand of the Lord.
我話好使到咧世上嘅萬民都知道耶和華嘅手有大能。
And so that you might fear the Lord your God.
Yeah.
Fear the Lord your God.
但係有使到你哋咧永永遠遠嘅敬畏耶和華。
I think that's a challenge to CBC.
呢個就係對 CBC 嘅挑戰。
Whether we're talking about generations of the past, current, or future,
無論係講到即係以往、現在、未來嘅世代，
we are to fear God, the holy God that we serve.
我哋要敬畏呢位聖潔嘅神。
Now I need to come to the end. Now I have 5 more minutes to talk a little bit about leadership succession. 31, page 31.
而家咧仲有5分鐘嘅時候咧，我要講講咧，即係我哋嘅領導。
Now, of course, in this leadership succession, you see this balance of God making the appointment and yet men pleading with God to seek God for this appointment. It's both working together.
我哋見到咧，當神係興起一個領袖嘅時候咧，首先有神自己嘅揀選同埋呼召，另外一方面咧就係人自己對神嗰種嘅懇求。
Page 32, in Numbers, in the book of Numbers.
喺民數記。
God told Moses to go up to the mountain and say, see the land, the promised land. You're not going to enter the promised land.
神咧就叫摩西上山上面，你可以睇到呢啲嘅應許地。
And Moses pleaded with God in verse 16.
咁咧喺16節裏邊咧，摩西就向神咧懇求。
He asked God, God appoint someone over this community so that the Lord's people will not be like sheep without a shepherd, in verse 17.
佢話咧就懇求耶和華，佢話要立一個人咧係治理會眾，可以咧在他們面前出入，又可以咧引導佢哋，免得佢哋咧耶和華嘅會眾咧好似冇牧人嘅羊群一樣。
And the Lord told Moses, you are to appoint Joshua, the spirit of leadership will be on him.
咁耶和華就對摩西話：亂你兒子約書亞係心中有靈嘅人，你將佢咧領嚟，按手佢在佢頭上。
I know that in different churches we have different systems in the appointment of leadership, right? Baptist, Presbyterian, Anglican, there are different systems.
喺唔同嘅教會、唔同嘅宗派咧，係委任領袖咧有唔同嘅即係手續。
But there is one important principle here about leadership appointment.
但係喺呢度咧有一個原則啊，就係當我哋去呼召一個嘅領袖嘅時候，
It is always God's appointment.
呢個係首先要係神自己所任命嘅，
It's always God's choice.
係神自己嘅選擇。
And yet it is men and women pleading with God and seeking God's will in this process.
但係喺同時嚟講咧，就係群眾不斷嘅向神懇求，去祈求咧有一位神合神心意嘅牧人。
Page 33. Page 33. And there is one very interesting description about Moses.
喺呢度咧，即係有一個咧對於摩西嘅描述係非常之有趣。
What I call boundary and horizon.
喺呢度咧係我哋講到咧，即係呢個嘅界限喺邊度？
We're on page 33. It's very interesting here. God told Moses that it's going to be Joshua, right?
神咧話俾摩西聽，而家接你手嘅咧就係約書亞。
Moses somehow still felt it inside. I wanted to see the promised land. I wanted to be in the promised land.
但係摩西嘅心裏面仲有個願望啊，即係我真係好想見到呢個應許地。
In verse 25 it says, "Let me go over and see the good land beyond the river Jordan."
咁喺25節嗰度嘅話咧，求你容我過去看約旦河那邊嘅美地，就是那佳美的山地和黎巴嫩。
You know, he was pleading with God.
佢喺呢度咧真係懇求神。
用廣東話嘅時候就係我哀神啊，懇求他，對嘛？ And yet, how did God respond? It was out of a surprise. I was surprised by God's response.
咁神點樣回答咧？我都係覺得好奇怪嘅，神呢個回答。
Stop talking. That's enough.
唔好再講啦，夠啦，講。
Don't bargain with me.
唔好再同我喺度講價還價。
Verse 26. Do not speak to me anymore about this matter. Wow. God came down hard on Moses.
佢話罷了，不要向我再提呢件事。
And yet God said, "Well, your job is not finished yet."
但係咧，其實你要做嘅工作仲未做完喎。
If you read Deuteronomy chapter 3, verse 28, commission Joshua and encourage and strengthen him.
呢度申命記3章18節講到，你卻要囑咐約書亞，勉勵他。
Just like David wanted to build a temple. God said, "No, it's not you. It's going to be Solomon."
就好似大衛王咧想為神咧建築呢個聖殿，但係神話唔係你要做啊，係所羅門啊。
So there's one very important lesson here, may I say, particularly for the senior leaders.
喺呢度咧，對於尤其是年長啲嘅領袖嚟講咧，好重要嘅功課。
A senior leader, whether it's a church or in this context, needs to know and discern his or her boundary God has set before him or her. You need to know your boundary.
就係我哋要知道咧，神究竟咧喺我哋呢個嘅領導上邊咧，係立咗咩嘅界限。
When God says no, He means no.
當神話唔可以嘅時候，就係唔可以啦。
And God told Moses, "Stop talking. That's enough."
所以神就叫摩西唔好再講啦，夠啦，講夠啦。
And yet God says, "Hang on, your job is not finished yet. Encourage the next generation. Encourage Joshua. That is your job."
但係你仲未做完嘅，仲有啲工作要做嘅，就係要鼓勵下一代，鼓勵咧係約書亞。
Your job is not to continue what you're doing.
你要繼續做嘅，要做工作咧，唔係繼續你以前嗰種嘅功能。
Your job is to encourage the next generation so that generation will provide the leadership.
你係要鼓勵下一代，以至到咧下一代咧能夠提供咧所需要嘅領袖。
So I need to stop. I need to conclude.
但我啲而家咧需要作個結束啦。
It's our coffee time.
係真係咖啡嘅時候。
We have looked at the life of Moses and Joshua.
我哋睇見咧摩西嘅生平，亦都睇見約書亞嘅生平。
They were both servants of the Lord.
佢哋兩個咧都係神嘅僕人。
They were not perfect leaders, yes.
佢哋唔係即係完全十全十美嘅領袖。
But they remained steadfast.
但係咧，佢哋能夠非常之恆切嘅去侍奉神。
Moses created space for Joshua to grow.
摩西咧係能夠留到有空間俾約書亞去發展。
And Joshua stepped up to the challenge.
而約書亞咧能夠上前去承擔呢個責
And
任。
I pray that will be true for CPC as well.
我希望咧喺 CBC 裏邊亦都係咁樣。
We must create space for the new generation to serve and
我
grow.
哋一定咧要俾到足夠嘅空間，係下一代咧係能夠接上嚟，接棒上嚟。
And I pray that the new generation will also be ready to step up to the challenge.
我亦都希望咧係下一代嘅能夠準備好去上嚟咧接呢個棒。
The Lord gave Moses and Joshua the same command, the same thing.
但係神咧係俾摩西同約書亞咧同一個嘅命令。
Take off your sandals, for you are standing on holy ground.
將你嘅鞋除落嚟，因為咧你所站嘅係聖地。
I pray that will be true for CBC as well.
我希望你呢個亦都係對於 CBC 嚟講係真實嘅。
Whichever generation you belong to,
無論你係屬於邊一代，
fear God with a holy fear.
就係咧係敬畏，用呢個即係真誠嘅心去敬畏神。
That's the only way we can go forward.
呢個就係我哋唯一能夠向前走嘅一個方法。
With a holy fear by faith and courage.
一個聖潔嘅敬畏神嘅心，就係要有膽量嘅。
For we are standing on holy ground.
我哋現在所站嘅係神聖嘅地方。
Amen.
阿們。